And welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yulan Zale. We'll begin with the floods. And 10 more people lost their lives overnight to raise the death toll from the ongoing floods to 179. The government announcing the closure of several highways as intense overnight rains piled on to the flooding crisis in the country. 14 tourist camps in the Masai Mara have been submerged and scores of tourists left trapped in the ongoing flooding that continues to affect a large part of the country. Brenda Wanga begins our broadcast tonight on the unfolding crisis across nearly all counties in the country.
River Talek that flows through parts of the reserve broke its banks, spreading its waters across the tourist camps and trapping tens of visitors in these camps. In some of the camps, the tents have been swept away, while the key Mara Bridge linking the Mara Triangle and the Greater Mara has been washed away.
Maji inaendelea kuhatarisha maisha yao na hasa wakati wa usiku. Kwa hivyo ningetaka kuambia waangalifu na waondoke katika sehemu wako, waende sehemu za juu na pia waweze kupokea ambayo wanakuja kuwasaidia.
It took the concerted efforts of the county and national governments and the Mara Elephant Project together with the local community to evacuate some 40 tourists from the submerged camps. Some were airlifted from the camps while others were rescued by an aqua team.
Tuliweza kuokoa wageni ambao walikuwa wako kwa hizi macamps karibu 40 na wote wako sawa, hatujapata vivo yoyote.
While the search and rescue team tries to ensure that all trapped in the Mara are moved to safety, the death toll from the flood-related incidents rose to 179. 10 more lives were lost across the country in the last 24 hours. Amongst those who died, an elderly man in Machakos County whose house caved in, crushing him while he slept, an elderly woman and her grandson who fell into a pit latrine in a waterlogged location. A woman died in Kirinyaga County after the heavy rains caused a building under construction to collapse. Her 2 children survived.
And we want to caution the members of the public and also to the community that if you come across a weak area or a facility like a toilet or a public facility which is weak, we should give early warning to the members of the public.
This large number of fatalities have caught the eye of Pope Francis, who offered prayers for the country. Back home, the Archbishop of Nyeri was calling for caution and more proactive measures from government as it tackles the flooding disaster.
We have places where many have lost their lives. We are saddened, but at the same time we want to tell those people we are praying for them.
The rains are predicted to continue this month and are set to be felt tomorrow in the central Kenya counties of Nyandarua, Laikipia, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Murang'a and Kiambu. The capital, Nairobi, Meru, Tharaka Nithi will also continue to experience heavy rains, and so will the regions west of the country and in the Lake Basin region, including Kakamega, West Pokot, amongst others. The eastern parts of the country, Machakos, Kitui, as well as the northern counties like Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, Garissa and Isiolo should prepare for heavy rains tomorrow. Floods and landslide-prone areas have also been put on high alert as rains continue to pound these regions. As the rains and their attendant dangers continue to impact the country, the government is scaling up its intervention in both search and rescue as well as humanitarian aid. In Tana River, the search for the bodies of those who disappeared in the boat capsize incident on Sunday afternoon got a boost with the arrival of military personnel to assist in the recovery of the boats and to ease the transportation challenges. The government has announced the closure of the Kedong-Suswa Road due to heavy siltation and the Ewasongiro-Nasurura Road at the Oldonyo-Orasha River crossing caused by the overtopping of the vented drift as a result of the ongoing heavy rains. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
All right, Brenda, thanks so much for that. Now, overnight rains that pounded the capital city on Tuesday have left a trail of destruction across the city. Nairobi residents woke up to flooded homes and impassable roads, forcing the Kenya Urban Roads Authority to temporarily close several roads in the capital and outlying areas due to flooding. Our very own Miriam Walkie reports that the torrential rains have led to the overflowing rivers, burst sewers, submerged roads and homes, and left many Nairobi residents counting their losses.
A city under siege. The gushing waters demonstrating Mother Nature's fury that most Nairobi residents have had to contend with. Nairobi motorists plying the Eastern Bypass on Wednesday had to contend with the huge volume of water to get across this section of the road near Nairobi Gate. Heavy rains on Tuesday caused this river to break its banks, resulting in large pools of water, cutting off transport in this section. Most private car owners had to wait it out as motorists with huge vehicles took their chances to cross the section. The traffic snarl-up caused by the overflowing river stretching for over 2 kilometers.
Naona sasa tumekwama kutoka asubuhi hapa mpaka saa hii. Tunataka tuvuke tuende ngambo ile, imeshindikana. Kwa hivyo inataka saa hii hata waziri wa barabara asiende na ndege akuje na barabara ndio aone mahali kuna stahili kurekebishwa. Manake sasa kama atapita na chopa chini ataona kweli? Hataona. Barabara zitazidi kama hapa sasa kunataka box culvert kubwa. Pale ilikuwa inataka wainue ndio at least maji ipite na chini.
Huu mto umefurika kiasi kikubwa sana, na ndio unaona hata huko mbele hii mto umeweza kutupa maji yake kando ambapo inazuilia magari kupita.
Earlier on, traffic had ground to a stop along Thika Road after flood waters cut off a section of the road along the Juja Way Bridge, forcing Kura to announce the temporary closure of several roads in the city to avert further disasters.
Jinia wa Kenya, saa ni wakati mwafaka. Muamke, muangalie ile makosa ilifanyika hii barabara. Sasa kwa drainage, hasa hapa kwetu Juja, hasa hapa Way Bridge.
Nairobi's 3 major rivers have now burst their banks and the flood waters have found their way to people's homes. At the civil servants' estate in Nairobi West, residents were among the hundreds of Nairobi city dwellers whose lives were turned upside down by the ongoing floods. This mixture of sewer and flood waters from the Ngong River that burst its banks, coursing through their otherwise serene neighborhood, effectively shutting a majority of them indoors with no reprieve in sight. Across the city in Zimmerman Estate, a similar script is playing out. Pools of water mixed with sewer block the entrances to many apartments, and those who have to go to work are forced to wade through the muddy waters.
Maji huku kwa hii plot yenye naishi imetusumbua sana. Na mimi kwanza saa hii kutoka niamke watoto wangu hawajakunywa chai. Hata kusema hivyo hakuna hata mahali unaweza kieti, maji imejaa kila mahali.
So tunaomba county government ya Zimmerman na Nairobi mfanye kitu. Drainage huku iko very poor. Maji kwa nyumba mkiangalia hapa imefurika pia.
The Kenya Urban Roads Authority on Wednesday announced the temporary closure of several roads in Nairobi after flood waters breached bridges and paralyzed transport. The affected roads include sections of Enterprise Road, Eastern Bypass and some underpasses on the Thika Superhighway. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has, however, assured city residents that work has begun in earnest to reconstruct all bridges destroyed by the ongoing floods, noting all the 3 major rivers in Nairobi have burst their banks.
Tuko na daraja kama 17 ambazo zilikuwa zimebebwa na maji, na leo hii I can confirm to your excellency that we are starting the reconstruction of all of those bridges to make sure our children can be able to go to school and to cross over.
Along Kangundo Road, transport has been paralyzed after Athi River broke its banks on Tuesday night. Area residents say the road was cut off at 4 a.m. on Wednesday morning, leaving thousands of travelers stranded. This is the aftermath of the heavy rains that pounded this area on Tuesday night. Residents here woke up and found that the Athi River had, broken its banks, effectively cutting off transport in this area. Those coming from Nairobi seeking to go to Kangundo cannot proceed beyond this point, and those also coming from Tala and Joske cannot make their way across this section of the road because, as you can see, it has been flooded, and they wait not knowing for how long they're going to wait.
Tumetoka town tukileta abiria mara. Sasa kufika hapa mtu wa Joska tukapata ardhi imejaa. Sasa tukakuama hapa ndio tumesimama sasa tunangojea. Alafu sasa tuone vile abiria wataweza kufika.
Leo manzi nikifanya kazi zangu za stage marshal. Mvua ilikuwa imeanza saa 2 jana usiku hadi 5. Tumefika stage, daraja imeenda. Nikaamua nifike pale Athi River nione nini na go on. Nikapata Athi River sando was imejaa.
Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
All right, Mary, thanks so much for that. At the same time, the death toll from the Mai Mahio water wash tragedy has risen to 51 after 3 more bodies were retrieved from the debris during a rescue operation for possible survivors undertaken by members of the Kenya Defence Forces and the National Youth Service. In the meantime, railway service between Nairobi and Kisumu will remain suspended for 3 months to allow for the reconstruction of the giant underpass culvert and damaged section of the Longonot-Kijabe-Mai Mahio railway line. Our very own Seth Olale reports from the access of the spillway in uplands in Kijabe, where hell literally broke loose.
The exact epicenter of the Mai Mahio tragedy that has so far claimed 51 lives. It was at this exact valley where raging waters from the adjacent Kijabe and Kiharu hills settled momentarily. Before underneath pressure of the waterway caused the destruction of a 131 meters long colonial giant culvert built underneath the railway line. What happened next can only be described by locals here as doomsday.
3 a.m. tukasikia nilikuwa na watch movie, tukasikia kitu imeria kama risasi. Kutoka nje tunasikia matope inanuka. Kushuka huku chini tunapata watu wamebebwa na maji, ng'ombe, karibu kila kitu, everything.
Kijabe Dark Tunnel is a tunnel that people usually come. It attracts people because of that darkness, and people enjoy being here. But now with the ongoing rains, and as you can see, we have big escarpments on the hills here in Kijabe. So the water coming from upstream came and blocked. The landslides brought a lot of swell and trees and the rocks that blocked the tunnel.
With the only reservoir preventing an accelerated downstream water splash from the Kijabe and Kiharu hills compromised, the raging waters gushed freely to the neighborhoods downstream without a warning.
This river channel is actually a valley, but within the valley, as you can see upwards, there are a lot of other gullies which are formed, which are natural gullies. What ordinarily would happen is that these gullies would accumulate water up to some point. When now the amount of water is too much, then they break the banks and a lot of water comes down. So we suspect that that is what may have happened.
The Longonot-Kijabe Mai Mahio railway line was not spared either.
A water roofing structure.
The managing director of Kenya Railways Corporation, Philip Mainga, says it will take up to 3 months to reconstruct the giant underpass culvert and damaged section of the meter gauge line that was swept downstream during the tragedy. But even more worrying is the current accumulation of flood waters at Uplands Kijabe. Experts warn that another prolonged 48-hour non-stop downpour will deal residents here a more severe blow.
We have debris coming from upstream. We have logs. We also have twigs and other materials from the farms, including also soil, which is basically silt.
The nearby Kijabe railway station also fell victim to the horrific April 29th spillage downstream. Until late Wednesday, engineers from the Kenya Railways Corporation were busy inspecting the Longonot-Kijabe Mai Mahio line for any unprecedented landslides and tunnel clogging to prevent another tragedy. In the meantime, the search for the missing persons continued, even as death toll climbed to 51 after 3 more bodies were retrieved. The search team, comprising of the Kenya Defence Forces and the National Youth Service, used sniffer dogs to comb the area. The rescue center recorded more than 50 people missing. A total of 293 internally displaced households are camping at Ngea Girls Secondary School. The aftermath of the tragic night of April 29th remains a permanent scar for locals here until intervention is made and assurance not only here but critical government infrastructure that have been damaged due to the torrential rains that continue to pounder most parts of the country. Seth Olale, Citizen TV, Kijabe.
All right, Seth, thanks so much for that. Now, still on the floods, and disaster is looming in Molo, with 4 water pans in the area filled to the brim, exposing residents of Turi to danger. As our very own Marianne Nyambura reports, residents are now appealing to the authorities to avert the crisis and relocate them to higher grounds.
This Asakaitim, Nyenda, Ndenderu and Ngwataniro water pans, the small dams filled and spilling over to the nearby farms and road networks, posing a risk to the residents of Turi, Molo. Residents here now live in fear.
Inatuezi woga kwa sababu tulali maji tunasikia kikunja kwa wingi sana.
Tukiona hii damu karibu ibomoe na ikibomoa itamaliza watu kutoka mko hapa kwetu na Mkorombozi na pahali pengine, kwa sababu inateremsha maji upande wa chini. Kwa hivyo sisi tukiwa wakawaji hapa tungestahili utrate itolewe na tuwekewe makarabati ile kubwa kubwa.
Turi residents are just a fraction of those the government insists need to relocate to safer grounds, as their areas are prone to landslides and flooding. Though residents say they are ready to heed the call, the question they ask is, where are the safer grounds?
Hii damu yetu kwa sasa maji imekuja kwa barabara, hata tukiruka dam tunaruka tukiwa na woga. Tunaenda tukiwa na woga kwa sababu tunaona tukipita kama maji inakuja inaweza kuja ipite na sisi. Tujitayarisha juu tujui pahali tunaenda. Lakini wakuja watusaidie vile maji itaenda ili watu wasipelekwe.
Hatuwezi tukagojea kifo tukiona na macho. Kwa hivyo ule ako karibu ajaribu aondoke kwa sababu haijulikani wakati wa maji kuboromoka. Na sisi tukiwa mbali hatuwezi tukamsaidia.
Following Interior CS Kithure Kindiki's directive to county security and intelligence teams to inspect water reservoirs and private dams on Monday, county security teams in Molo swung into action on Wednesday to assess the situation, and it's hoped that swift action will be taken to avert a crisis. Marianne Nyambura, Citizen TV.
All right, Marianne, thanks so much for that. Now, transport activities continue to be paralyzed across various places in the country as scores of others continue to face displacement due to ongoing floods. According to the Kenya Red Cross, it is anticipated that more than 190,000 people will be rendered homeless by the end of the week as the weatherman predicts a week of heavy rains. As Laura Otieno reports, boat ferrying services between Garissa and Madogo were restored, with a multi-agency team now monitoring the activity to avoid overloading of the boats. Take a listen.
Scenes at Kapwothe area in Kisumu County. Pieces of wood remain of what was once a solid bridge connecting Dunga and Kapwothe villages. More than 300 families around the area have been cut off as they remain marooned in waterlogged houses. Residents here accusing the county government of failing to deliver on its earlier promise of dredging waterways to drain water from the roads and villages.
Tingatinga tuliona walileta hapa. Hakuna hata tingatinga ilifika kwa mahali pabaya ilifaa watengeneze. Tingatinga ikarudi zikaenda.
Hata saa hii ukiangalia hapa
hizi ni miti za watu. Kulikuwa kunafanya kazi sisi wenyewe wenye wakaji wa Kaputhi.
In Kitengela, Kajiado County, residents joined hands to pull out vehicles that had been swept into ditches by the raging waters. Some opting to watch from a safer distance as waters still carpeted various feeder roads across the area. According to the Kenya Red Cross, more people are likely to be displaced over the next 3 days following the continuation of heavy rains in parts of the country.
Our request to the communities is to be more vigilant, to avoid taking risks with moving waters, to take early decisions in terms of providing information in the areas that have been affected, so that we do not have to be called at the tail end when the levels of the waters have increased dramatically.
We had a lot of calls from the German community in Kenya, how they can help, how they can contribute. So we did sort of Kenyan Harambee-style collection in the last 2 days, and we brought a small check to Idris from the Red Cross in order to support the people in the local communities.
This even as boat transport services between Madogo and Garissa towns resume on Wednesday morning after a 2-day suspension. Officers from the Kenya Coast Guard, the national and county governments, as well as the Kenya Red Cross supervising the activity, as all occupants wore life jackets during the journey. This comes after a boat capsized on Sunday night at Konapunda area, leaving 7 people dead and more than 6 still missing.
Mfano kama boti yetu ya county government inabeba watu 15, lakini leo tumefanya watu 10. Tunafusha watu free.
Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.